Former conservative lawyer turned Trump foe George Conway has officially launched a Democratic bid for New York's 12th Congressional District. Conway is jumping into an increasingly crowded field to represent the Manhattan-based seat. Here to discuss, The Hill's deputy managing editor, Sarakshi Rai. Hey, Sarakshi. So George Conway is going up against Jack Schlossenberg of the Kennedy family fame. There's also New York State Assemblyman Micah Lasher and a long list of other candidates looking to secede retiring Congressman Jerry Nadler. What is Conway's message to voters?
That's right, Drew. This is turning out to be one of the most packed races of the coming midterms. Now George Conway has spent most of his adult life as a Republican, and just until a few weeks ago, he was still living full-time in the Washington, D.C. suburbs, right? He jumped into this primary race for this really coveted open house seat in one of New York's bluest districts. And in a recorded message to voters, he said that he basically went after the president. He called him a criminal president who is basically running the government like a mob operation. Now, this is as soon as he declared his candidacy. And he also said that we need people to come in who are willing to call that out and people with special skills. So that's really his appeal to the voters of this New York congressional district, saying that he's the one to take on Trump and that's why they should vote for him, Drew.
How much of his conservative past do you think will come under scrutiny in what will be a Democratic primary? Will that be a liability as he faces Democratic voters?
His candidacy to replace Representative Jerry Nadler may very well be a difficult sell, especially given his past party affiliation and residency, right? Now, if you look at, this district, it stretches really the width of Manhattan from the 14th Street near the top of Central Park. And New York's 12th district is amongst the most affluent and reliably liberal and politically engaged in the country. So, it's going to be a very hard sell for a former Republican like George Conway, now turned Democrat, to go up against some of these Democrats. We also know that Democrats outnumber Republicans 7-1 in that district. And really his conservative credentials may also give New Yorkers some pause. Remember, if you look back to the 1990s, he helped bring accusations of sexual misconduct against President Bill Clinton to light, really angering Democrats, right? When Trump won the White House in 2016, George Conway cried tears of joy on election night, and he was talked about maybe a potential job in the Justice Department. Now, he didn't take that potential job, but he did move with his then wife, Kellyanne Conway, from their home in New Jersey to the D.C. area when she took the job in the White House. So really, he does come with a very Republican past. But, since then, he has really had this kind of breakup with the president and has really gone after him in the aftermath of whatever's happened in Trump's first term, and is now very staunchly anti-Trump. So we'll just have to see if the voters of this New York district really resonate with his messaging at all.
Is that anti-Trump stance going to be the crux of Conway's campaign?
Well, if elected, he said that he does want to go after the president, but he also said he would fight to protect the Affordable Care Act and support legislation that would enshrine the abortion rights that the Supreme Court eradicated into law, right? Now, this is also kind of a flip from where Conway was once before, because he previously argued that Roe versus Wade had been incorrectly decided, but said this week that he thought the court's decision overturning it was appalling, right? Now, he also supports New York City's year-old congestion pricing program, but he said he did not know how he would have voted in last November's mayoral election, which was won by Zohran Mamdani. So essentially, Conway is 100% trying to appeal to voters using some of his last few years' experience, saying that he's someone who's shown that he's gone after the president and he can take him on, Drew.
Is Conway's plan to spearhead an impeachment against Trump if he's elected and if Democrats take back the House?
Well, that still is unclear whether or not Conway would pursue an impeachment effort against the president. But, he has said that despite having poured himself into social media posts, podcasts, and legal briefs opposing the president, he really had never considered running for office until last November, when a friend of his really encouraged him to look into Jerry Nadler's seat. It's unclear whether he would still pursue another impeachment effort against the president, but it really isn't an accident that Conway's officially announcing his bid to run for Congress with a video on January 6th, the 5th anniversary of this attack on the Capitol by the president's supporters. You know, he was also asked about other issues like affordability and constituent services, and Conway has maintained that his first priority is going after Trump.
And how will Conway work to convince Democratic voters to look past that conservative past?
That's right. So, you know, if you look at his past and you look at, you know, post his breakup with Trump, you know, he spent more than $1.5 million attacking the president with TV ads and billboards. He's also donated to Democratic candidates as well. You know, and in response to some of his donations, the president hit back on social media, really making fun of George Conway, calling him Mr. Kellyanne Conway and a stone cold loser and husband from hell. So the president's really, you know, not mincing words when it comes to George Conway. And while that district embraces Conway's anti-Trump message, it really doesn't differentiate him from all of the other Democrats running in that district, right? They're all anti-Trump as well. And Conway says that he's not trying to become a career politician either. He sees himself as a special teams player who only serves for a few years. So now that could be the duration of, you know, the president's term, if that's what he intends to do. But it's still unclear whether or not, you know, his messaging will resonate in this deeply, deeply Democratic district with some Democratic candidates who already are kind of pushing the same message as Conway right now, Drew.
All right. Always great to have your insight. Sarakshi Rai, thanks so much for your time.